Hey y'all, I'm Frederica Tapanwe, the host of this podcast series, Debunking the Myth of a Superwoman. Serving as a conduit of empowerment and inspiration requires me to show up authentically. Knowing we are the sum total of our experiences, I petition you to grab hold of your personal compass and move towards a healthier version of yourself. In today's episode, I will be talking about finding healing beyond trauma. Some of the information I share may be triggering, so I have provided some helpful resources in the description section. In episode 1, and if those of you who didn't watch it, please go back and watch it. I listened to it. I mentioned how I lost 5 family members back to back in a 4-year time period, and then a few years later, I experienced loss again when my husband died suddenly in a car accident, leaving me a widow with a 6-month-old baby. But what I did not share was right after my father died, in between the deaths of my siblings and mother, I was being sexually abused by my track coach. So I was dealing with a lot of trauma at a very young age. When the abuse first started, I was still emotionally tapped out from losing my father. My father was present in my life and responsible actually for me pursuing track and field. And just thinking today, I hold on so many memories of me and him just competing. I mean, we went at it like we were competitors. The whole thing in front of my childhood family home. Run and take your mark. He would give me a head start. My father was actually fast for an older man, but he would give me a head start. And just that interaction with him during that time period, it just really ignited the competitiveness in me. But again, when my coach, getting back to him, he began showing up in my life and mimicking a concerned father. And because he was so good at playing the roles of a coach, a father figure, it kind of left me indebted to him. He coached me into being one of the nation's top junior athletes, which led me to receiving a full athletic scholarship to the University of Tennessee. It afforded me opportunities to be selected for different youth teams to represent my state. So I really was being exposed to a lot of opportunities. His tactics of earning my trust resulted in me being groomed for many years. And that work that takes place during that grooming period, it left me feeling like I was stuck in a spider web. It's very difficult. It's hard to explain, but you just kind of feel trapped. You don't know which way to do. You don't even know what's going on with you. During that age, I wasn't sexually active. I didn't know anything about sex. So the fact that I was in this sexual abuse environment was just too much for me to even bear. I don't know if many of you remember when that sexual abuse scandal broke with the United States gymnastic team, when the physician was sexually abusing the children, like over 500 athletes. A lot of people were shocked, but how was it? The look of that sexual predator is one of an ordinary person, and oftentimes they line themselves up so that they can gain close access to their victims. And like that physician, some gain closer access through employment, while others predators line themselves up probably with that single parent by either trying to date them or just being a source of support. But guess what? The agenda is to get closer to that child. So they're very clever at accomplishing that agenda. So when my coach began showing up as a source of help for my mother, I was less feeling conflicted. He wasn't trying to date her, but I'm sure he realized the emotional stress both of us were experiencing. I think I met my coach about a year or so before my father passed. So my coach was there when my father died, when my siblings died, when my mother died, battling cancer, and then eventually when my mother died. So he saw that whole process. He was involved with that whole process with me and my family. It was like he was a part of the family, right? Because my mother was badly cancer during this time, and in my immature mind, I felt making my mother a co-owner of my secret will kill her sooner than later. So I didn't say anything. But what I learned was at this point in my life, I was unconsciously applying the coping mechanism called betrayal blindness. And when I further researched that, Dr. Jennifer Frey defines betrayal blindness as not allowing yourself to see what is going on, to connect the dots, or to fully engage with reality, because if you did, the information would threaten your relationship with the person who is most important to you, which at the time was my coach, my mother, right? She further states in her research, whatever the threatening information may be, we can't let ourselves know what it is because it would create such chaos, such terror, such pain and confusion that we feel we might not survive emotionally and psychologically. And if I'm honest, during this time, I don't think I would have had the bandwidth to even confirm the abuse if I was asked. again, I already lost one parent, and I did not want to be re-traumatized by losing another one. So because my coach held a significant position within the track community, I didn't want my confession to be the reason why he was incarcerated. And I can remember just how I felt when I lost my dad so sympathetically. I did not want that for his kids. I didn't want his kids to bear the pain of losing their dad due to him being incarcerated. And I was a part of a track team of young girls, and running track afforded them many opportunities too to travel and be involved in different things. So I didn't want my confession to mess up their life and turn their life topsy-turvy. So I did not want to be looked upon as a person who destroyed this coach's life. So unfortunately, I put a lot of burden on myself, and instead of crying out for help or telling mom what I was enduring, I carried that burden of being abused. And it's just really weird how I even knew how to do that at a young age. But I put other feelings ahead of mine. I put a smile on my pain. And why I did that? Because I was afraid. Fear paralyzed me into staying silent for many years. And because I didn't say anything, never had an opportunity to receive any help or therapy, which led to unhealthy thinking and tactics. I found myself pretty much surviving just by kind of seeing how people were surviving around me. The main example I had was my mother. My mother was going through a lot. She lost her husband, she lost her children, her mother, and she was battling breast cancer herself. And all I saw her do was pray. I didn't see her really fall apart, or it wasn't like she turned to alcohol or anything like that. She remained intact emotionally. So that's all I have, right? I figure, okay, my mother's doing it subconsciously, I guess, or unconsciously. I was mimicking the same behavior. So, but while I was trying to mimic her survival tactics, while I was dealing with panic, confusion, shame, guilt, and the feeling of abandonment played in my mind over and over for years. I felt abandoned. I still was feeling weird in my mind, but I didn't know how to articulate that. So I lived this life. I figured, okay, I'm coming from this Christian background, and maybe if I try to live this perfect Patty life, or maybe if I be better, if I behave myself, or I do better because I'm thinking I'm being punished, right? That's how I felt. But I figured, well, if I'm doing better, if I behave, maybe I won't have to experience any more horrible things in my life. So I hid my pain, and I just began to just excel in track and field. Running was like my therapy. Oftentimes people may question the victim's motive, not realizing they're doing all they can to survive. People might say, why is this victim staying with that person? Why they have continued to have a connection with this individual that's causing them so much harm? They don't know how to get out. And it's easy for people who are not in that same circumstance as the victim to question their motive, question their actions. But honestly, the victim is just trying to survive. So even though continuing to run meant that my coach had access to me daily, I had to find a way to survive, so I kept running. Because in that sports arena, it was easy for me to show up and meet the expectation of all, despite what I was secretly enduring, right? When running, I was constantly developing the strength to eventually get out my situation, but at the time I didn't know that. But running helped me to show up like a superwoman, despite what I was doing. I felt powerful, I was significant, and I was admired. So I embraced how I felt on that track, because at the time I did not see the abuse stop, and I said, this is the deck of cards I was dealt for my life. So pretty much I was saying, just let me deal with it. But I think this is where a lot of people get stuck, because like myself, I created a false destructive scenario about the future based on my negative experience, and I think a lot of people do that as well. And as a result, you have challenges showing up authentically in their roles, whether that's a mother, father, husband, wife, a leader, a pastor, teacher, whatever it is, right? And some of those people deal with the imposter syndrome, doubting their abilities and feeling like a fraud. And guess what? These people are accomplished. They're making waves in the community. They're a go-to person. But at the end of the day, are feeling less than because they lack the tools to deal with their negative experiences. When they was going through that trauma, they didn't have the capacity. They didn't have the tools to deal with it. So they figured, let me suppress it. Let me act like it didn't happen. But when we do that, eventually it's going to leak in our life one way or another. I grabbed the whole identity of a sexually abused person and placed everyone and every opportunity in the penalty box. And why I did that? Because my trust issues, they were tainted. They were tainted, and this caused me to miss many opportunities and a lot of great relationships. But I did what I did. And as I continued and just kept pushing forth, not knowing that anything was going to change, but life goes on. You got to keep living. Sometimes life as long as we live in life is going to bring us some things that may not be comfortable for us. But I just kept working through that murkiness of my life, not even realizing what was going to happen. But guess what? A miracle was occurring. I just didn't know at the time. That's why it's so important to keep pushing through your mess, keep moving. It might seem like it's never going to change. It might seem like it's never going to get better, but God has a way of strengthening us to persevere. And even though we may not understand the process or see a way out, or even may not look like the path that we would choose to get out of it, just keep working at it. And I got to a point when I was ready to get out of this situation. And with the miracle that I told you occurred was I was falling in love. Yes, I was falling in love. And can you believe it? Like, that's a miracle. The fact that somebody that was being abused for so many years to have the capacity to even love, to the fact that somebody was being sexually abused wanted to love a man, right? But my fiance at the time, he empowered me. We had so much in common, and he empowered me. He helped me to see new possibilities for my life. I was ready to fight for my life. Who would have, I just recalling it now, it's like, wow, I couldn't even believe that I was ready to do that. Whereas for so long I had such a negative mindset. And as I stated before, healing was occurring. I just didn't realize that's what was happening. So when I finally broke my silence after years, the abuse stopped, y'all. The abuse stopped. Everything that I imagined, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, it didn't happen the way that I imagined it. I imagined a worst case scenario, and that didn't happen that way. The abuse stopped, and I was supported. Even though I was no longer being sexually abused, there still was a lot of work to be done. Remember, a 14-year-old victim was calling the shots in my mind for a long time, so there was constant in battle, back and forth, to suppress that negative mindset that I had for so long, right? And this journey did not take place overnight, and sometimes we're impatient. We just want to feel like healed and whole right away. It's a process. I've been abused for so long, so why would I think that? Yes, it can be done, but oftentimes it takes a while for us to just really do that work. And eventually, like I said, I'm talking many years, I just began showing up authentically. Why? Because I was tired of living that imposter syndrome, right? I began exposing my trauma. I began surrounding myself around individual women who was able to empower me, who might have had their own traumas or different issues that they overcome. And I began therapy. And this helped me to, see a new possibility for myself. Like I said, wow, they did it, I can do it too. Did any of y'all get a chance to read Viola Davis' new book, Finding Me? Y'all get that book. It is excellent. In one of her chapters, she quotes this powerful statement. She stated that when you are in the face of compassion and empathy, it's amazing how it kills shame, because you are seen for something way more valuable than your circumstances. Wow. I love that. Like, that is awesome. So empowering, right? And that's kind of what therapy did for me. It helped me to unravel that mental negative thought pattern that I had, that I held on for so long, thinking because this happened to me that I have to show up this way. No, I was able to change all that around, see things differently, right? I became invested in myself, and I began taking them steps towards my purpose of inspiring and empowering women to move beyond what has them emotionally stuck. It's like now I'm this advocate, because when I was younger, I didn't have nobody, to help me. Even though I didn't say anything, but I didn't have nobody really just to kind of push me along. And that's why I see for myself now. It's like I'm the person that I needed back then. That's who I am for others. And again, that fear will try to keep you stuck. It will try to keep you from moving forward. And one acronym I like about fear is that it is false evidence appearing real. So I empower you to stop letting your fears paralyze you from emotional freedom. Oftentimes what you think it is not the situation, it's not the case. It's only going to keep you from trying to move forward. Deal with your traumas, face them head on, and grab hold to your new possibilities. What you've been through was something difficult, but guess what you've gained? You gained some new tools to move ahead now to help you with whatever you may face, right? And even to help others. So you have to put in the work, though, and be invested in your recovery. You got to do the hard work. And as long as we live, we're going to face challenges and circumstances. So don't even think that it's one and done, right? But I petition you, address the emotions and feelings. Talk to someone, a therapist, a friend, a spiritual advisor, other like-minded women. Find somebody that can empower you. Join support groups. They have a lot more available now than when I was dealing with my mess. But Yeah, join a support group that can help you through your pain. Pray and forgive, y'all. Forgiveness is a whole nother topic, but let me tell you, it's a necessity. And parents, again, just to get back to that abuse, I shared my experience with dealing with childhood sexual abuse. It's a serious problem that occurs at every socioeconomic level, through every culture. Nobody's immune. You have to find a way to communicate with your children, especially those ones who's doing well. You see how I did it, right? I showed up unscathed and I was silently suffering. Communicating about sex can be awkward. Well, communicating about a lot of different things. Children are dealing with so much stuff, their identity, bullying, so on and so forth. But I'm just going to since I had the experience with sex, communicating about sex can be awkward for both parents and child, but try to normalize it. Don't interrogate them, because remember, oftentimes the abuser is someone that the child and family know well, and the child can find it extremely difficult to share. Many of us come from that old school background, especially if you're within my age group. Many of us come from that old school background in which we're taught, whatever happens in this house, stay in this house. Man, we got to get beyond that, because having that mindset is debilitating. We're worrying about how our family showing up, and meanwhile we all emotionally drained, you know? So let go of that generational social structure of showing up unscathed. I mean, my God, we're dealing with so much. We're dealing with a lot of hard work, a lot of hard things. So why would you act like that's not a thing? It's a big thing to overcome tragedy, trauma, death, whatever it may be. So be the change. It's a new day and age. Do it differently. Don't push any abuse under the rug. Abuse is serious. It's a vicious crime. It's a cyclical crime, meaning it happens often. And again, when that victim does not receive the proper care, they too can become abusers. So again, thank you for joining me on this journey, and let's just do the work. Let's do it together. Let's make a change in this world. I petition you to grab hold of your personal compass and move towards a healthier version of yourself. And again, use your experience as a platform to help others. Stick with me, and if this podcast resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe to this podcast and my YouTube channel. Take care.